am I reading this morning? Of course, the latest PMI numbers. The central bank overnight released its own set of data, which is a bigger basket in terms of the sectors of the economy and subsectors surveyed. That showed that we had a relatively slowing down of our manufacturing activity. Index 56.3 in February against 57.3 reading in the first month of the year. 15 subsectors surveyed, 10 in the green, 5 in red. Then this morning, bright and early, we got FBN Quest, which is an independent a reading of the PMI, of course, a very smaller number of subsectors captured by this independent data, also showing a relatively sluggish month of February, 54.7. That's what the numbers are as we speak right now. So, but the FBN Quest, of course, put a caveat there that the January to March is relatively a slow month in terms of naira liquidity and a subdued consumer confidence. Let's take this with a number of other burning economic issues to our second analysis this week about the commodities market, and I'm going to stick a little bit with some of the things that are making the headlines. Adim Okwesa is back here for the second time this week, and we are chewing the numbers together. Good morning.
Good morning, Moses.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Quite a few, there are a lot of issues before consumers right now. What do you think are the topmost on their minds?
Well, I think prices are still relatively high. Domestic commodity prices are still relatively high for consumers now. But in coming months, those prices should decline. And if we go through our burning economic issues for today, I think the IMF said our growth outlook remains challenging. The poor, the low-income earners are still reeling from the plight of the economic recession. And if you look at our GDP is increasing, but our GDP, like you said earlier in the program, our GDP per capita is declining. So at the end of the day, it's not, our workers are not benefiting from the improvement in growth. However, one way to alleviate this plight speaks to the second point on the list is by raising the national minimum wage.
Which the government says will happen in Q3.
Yes, roughly 3 months
That's technically September.
Yes.
Yes.
Or start of Q3 or the end of Q3.
Maybe. But most likely it's going to be September. Well, you know, they're going to likely push it towards the end of the year so that by the time the cash start coming in, folks go for end of year shopping and all of that. And you say, thank you, looks like we have a Father Christmas here.
Yes, indeed. So that will be a very positive development for our low-income earners if the minimum wage can be increased to, I think the proposed figure is 56,000 naira. That's roughly $150 in today's exchange rate. So
yes,
that is
good news.
a decent amount of money. However, I think that's a double-edged sword for the country.
You and I know that. The landlords will be waiting.
Yes, if you look at it, especially for states that are struggling to generate revenue, states that are not financially viable,
to pay salaries,
they will struggle to continue paying salaries.
So do we expect some fireworks around this new minimum wage, which is once the federal set it, everybody will have to comply one way or the other?
Yes, indeed.
So we expect some states to say, sorry, we can't pay? Or we're going to delay the payment?
They would have to delay the payment if not. But the hope is that this minimum wage increase is followed by an increase in labor productivity. Because without that, it will really perpetuate the cycle of...
Yes, I like that. Yes, leads to productivity. How do we increase productivity? And that takes us to some of the good news and not so good news, which is all this sector is expanding. While our fuel queues will have average power output below 4,000 megawatts. So what will drive productivity here? Not necessarily what you pay me. Or do people really work better because you pay them more?
Well, people do work better if you pay them more, but also the quality of the work. For example, the agricultural sector is the largest employer of labor in the sector. The CBN has made a lot of progress with the agricultural sector through its intervention programs. And the hope is that this continues throughout this year. The CBN continues subsidizing the sector. And our workers, the sector continues to employ more people, and that feeds into the pockets of the workers. So we hope that continues in the month. And secondly, I think like you said earlier, the manufacturing sector too is a posted positive growth. The manufacturing sector has expanded throughout 2017 and continue to expand. And although the sector posted, I think, negative growth of 0.2%, I think that doesn't tell the full story. Without oil refinery, which really weighed on the sector manufacturing sector would have been positive. And the food, beverages, and tobacco sector really did, subsector of the manufacturing sector really did very well. And the inputs used for that subsector is from agriculture. So crops, another good subsector that did well was the crop production subsector in agriculture. So that was in spite of herdsmen clashes and rainfall and so on.
Right now, the PMIs are showing for February some sluggish growth in manufacturing activities, and part of what FVN said was that this January to March is relatively slow months. Is that really so?
Yes, that's the typical trend I've seen in the last few years. January, February, March, actually, there's a really subdued economic activity. There's not much, people keep holding a wait and see approach, just waiting to see how the economy turns out. So in the next, I'm sure by the next quarter, those indexes would improve. March, there'll be a slight uptick, and April, there'll be more pronounced uptick in our numbers. So it's looking promising.
We're looking at the 1st of March, so I'm sure you folks must have tried to put heads together. What will be the big stories for the consumer market as March gets underway? We're taking off the first day anyway off the calendar already.
I think the next data that we have to look out for is for inflation. What would be our inflation numbers? Will we see an uptick, or will we see a reversal we'll see a downward trend, or we'll see a reversal in the trend? I think it's still uncertain. We haven't seen the effect of this fuel scarcity on our inflation numbers, so it's still uncertain if our inflation numbers go up.
We had a very blistering December.
And January.
And a little bit of January.
I think the average fuel price people are paying between 190 to 200. So that feeds into logistic costs, transport costs. So it's still uncertain to see if our inflation numbers
will tick up in February. For February, we'll tick up when we get to that. So we shouldn't be surprised if we see uptick in inflation in March, maybe in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and in 2 weeks, I think that's when the numbers will be reduced. And if there's an uptick in inflation, that means the monetary authorities will be more reluctant to soften their stance on monetary policy. So.